welcome to the Yarn and Yarns YouTube channel. My name is Angela and the places you can find me online should be linked below. I'm most active on Instagram, where you'll find me as both Rainbow Ange and Yarn and Yarns. Here on the channel you'll find me waffling on about my adventures in knitting and spinning and crochet, and sometimes I pop up a video or two about my life as a yarn shop owner. I own a really small bricks and mortar yarn shop here in South Wales, where I live, just outside of Cardiff in the UK. As always, thank you so much for joining me today, whether you've been here many times before or are relatively new. I don't think we've had any brand new subscribers this week, at least YouTube hasn't notified me of such. But if you are relatively new and you haven't said hello, then I'd love to chat to you. So introduce yourself in the comments below if you'd like. Tell me what you like to do, what you're working on. I always love to chat. And of course, if you are joining me for the umpteenth time and would like to comment, then please do. I always try and get back to everyone who comments, although I'm sure every now and then a comment or two slips through the net. So if you've ever left a comment and I haven't replied, that it was a complete oversight, and I am sorry about that, because I do love to chat and reply. This week I don't feel like I have a ton to talk about. It was one of those weeks where other life stuff got in the way and I didn't do as much knitting and crochet as I usually do. I've also switched my day of recording, which is, I know it sounds like a silly simple little thing, but you get in these habits and routines, don't you? Or at least I do, and any change to that sort of feels like a big event. So I'm switching my days from here on in, from recording on a Sunday to a Monday, because over the summer I have decided to close the shop on a Monday. The shop tends to be a bit slower through the summer months, so I thought it'd be nice, after 8 months of running the business on my own without any extra help. I've been working 6-day weeks, so I thought it'd be nice for the summer to go back to a 5-day week and have a proper weekend. So Sundays are the day that I get to spend with James, who is my partner, and so I figured I would switch to a Monday, because I will now have Mondays free and James is at work, so I get to do plenty of stuff that's been on my to-do list for ages. So yeah, that's why this video is going up a little bit later than usual, but from here on in they'll be going up on Mondays, hopefully, fingers crossed and all that. I don't think there's any other general stuff to chat to you about. Sorry about the light today. I have had to close the blind that's directly above me because it was so super bright, but I think I'm a little bit shadowy now, but hopefully it won't be too bad. The picture on the camera seems relatively natural in terms of lighting, but I'm not sure if it's going to come across as a little bit dark, so please bear with me. As I say, I'm recording on a different day and a different time of day than usual. I'm going to start with knitting for a change this week. I have been pretty much monogamous with my knitting this week. I am working, it's been a week where I've been working on some of my older projects. So for the most part I've been working on my Derby cardigan. Derby is a pattern from Rowan Yarns, designed by Martin Story, and it's in this little booklet that came with their hemp tweed chunky, which was one of Rowan's Selects range. And the Rowan Selects are yarns that they bring out seasonally as a sort of special. Once they're gone type scenario for their selects. So the hemp tweed chunky was one of those, and I am making myself this cardigan from the pattern booklet. I'm making a couple of changes. So on the pattern you can see after the rib there's this sort of stockingette little border, which I don't particularly like the look of, so for me I've removed that border. This project is my oldest knitting whip on the needles. I started it for my 12 cast-ons of Christmas, not last year 2018 but in 2017. Cast on and then it just sat languishing. So this year I am determined to get it finished, and I've put in quite a bit of work on it this week. So I'm working on the back piece. I've already finished the sleeves, and last time I showed you this it was down here by this gorgeous little felted marker which I purchased from Gemma and I can't remember the name of her shop offhand. I think it's the Little Wonder. Anyway, I'll pop it on the screen and I'll link it down below. She sells some beautiful things. She changed her name. She was Rockabella Crafts, which is why I'm struggling to think of what her current name is. So when I purchased this, she was Rockabella Crafts. But yeah, it's this really cute needle felted mushroom. So I was down here. So this week I have knit up quite a lot of the back. So I have just finished the, if I show you here, just finished the shaping for the arms. Now I just need to knit up a little bit to make this the length that the back is going to be. So yeah, as you see, I have worked a fair bit on this. This pattern is an all over texture. I wonder if I'm going to be able to, there we go, that sort of shows you. Just knit some pearls, but it's kind of forms these diamond shapes, which are really lovely. I've already knit this pattern once. I knit the jumper version for James a couple of Christmases ago. Actually, it must have been for Christmas 2017, because I cast this on for myself not long after I cast off James's jumper. But I made the jumper version for him, and as I say, I'm making the cardigan version for myself. I'm knitting this in the Rioja colourway, which is a lovely sort of deep red with kind of tones of brown in the yarn. The flecks that you see are from the hemp that is in this yarn. The makeup of the yarn is, let me just grab a ball band, 75% wool, 25% true hemp. This yarn is no longer available in the chunky form, although they do still have the hemp tweed DK, which at the moment is part of their continuous lines, so not part of their select range. So yeah, I've got a little way to go now on the back, and then the fronts to do. I kind of have a hope that I might have this done by the end of June. Keep your fingers crossed for me. Although I didn't get tons of knitting time, as I say, I managed to knit quite a bit this week, and it's probably just a couple of evenings work. So another evening and I should be done with the back, and then I just, as I say, have the front pieces to do. So I reckon another couple of weeks work on this and it will hopefully be done. Of course, I don't need a chunky cardigan at the moment, but it will be nice to have this finished and ready for when the autumn and winter rolls around. I'm keeping that project in this gorgeous giant project bag that I bought from the lovely Lee, who is Lou Lee, and I'll link her below as well. Lee has a lovely YouTube channel here that has an Etsy shop where she sells project bags and needle cases and badges, like pin badges, all sorts of fun things. So you should definitely go and check out Lee's shop and podcast. And yeah, I use this bag all the time for sweater projects. It's giant. I've got quite a few balls of chunky yarn in here, as well as the sleeves and the back piece that I'm working on, and there's still plenty of room. Sorry for the jingling. I have a key charm hanging on that bag, so every time I move it, it jingles about. I'm also working on a test knit for Lee at the moment. I've promised not to show any in progress shots of the project, so I should talk a little bit more about that when I'm able to, but that's also meant that I don't have tons of knitting to show you this week. Apart from the jumper and the test knit, really the only other thing that I've worked on since the last video is my little gnome that I showed you last time, and I've actually finished it. So this is my one finished object for my knitting section this week, and it's this gnome. In the last video I showed you the hat portion of this gnome because I made this from the yarn that I span up in a little experiment. So I span the same bumper fibre in two different ways. So the first way I made a singles yarn, just following the colours, and then the second way I made a 2-ply yarn and I plied that together just however it wanted to be, to sort of show two different effects that you could get with the same little bit of fibre. And I was waiting to finish spinning up this lovely natural coloured yarn, which was a little sample that I got from the Spinner's Stash, and I decided that because of the lovely sort of warm brown tones in this yarn, that a nice sort of plain brown body would go nicely on this gnome. So this one is now finished. Not too much to say about that. As usual, the pattern is Never Not Gnoming from Sarah Shearer, who is Imagined Landscapes. These two are definitely a pair, but they do look very different, don't they? Which kind of just really solidifies that this was quite a fun experiment for me to think about spinning with purpose really, and the different effects that you can get just by applying different techniques to your spinning. So yeah, oops. He's alive. So yeah, my one finished object for this week. I think that probably moves me naturally into spinning, doesn't it? For spinning this week, I have recorded a little bit as I've gone along with a couple of the projects that I've been working on. So I'm going to pop that little video in here. So this week in spinning, I thought I'd show you what I will be working on. I'm going to have a go at spinning up a little bit of this second batch of Llanwenog fibre that I have. If you saw any of my videos about Llanwenog before, you'll see that the fibre prep for this batch of Llanwenog is a bit different. It's been sort of carded up into a bat, which means it's slightly less soft, I would say, than the first lot that I had. But I'm going to spin up a little sample. I'm going to use my Spin City UK spindle for this, which is a resin spindle with some lovely pressed flowers and some glittery bits in. I'm going to spin up maybe 10-20 grams of this just as a little sample to see how the fibre comes out compared to the batch of Llanwenog that I have already spun and knitted up into my hilltop shawl. And then alongside that, I'm also going to be spinning up this little sample of fibre that I had in a pack from Fondant Fibre. I'm going to use my really simple spindle, which I call Rosie, for this one. I got the spindle in a Learn to Spin kit from Hilltop Cloud here in the UK. This bump of fibre, I don't know the fibre content. It looks like from these bits here it's got a bit of silk or something in. The colours are a little bit brighter than showing on my phone screen here. There's some oranges and some greens, a little bit of yellow. I think this is probably going to muddy up quite a lot when I spin it. I'm not going to separate it out into colour because I think that will be a bit too difficult. There's really short runs of colour in this sample, so I'm just going to spin it up as is and see what we get. But as I say, I think these colours are probably going to muddy up quite a lot, but yeah, well, I guess we shall see what we get at the end. For the Llanwenog, I haven't done any special fibre preparation. I literally just ripped a hank off of the bat. It's only probably a couple of grams. I didn't actually weigh it, but it's spinning up really nicely, the same as the previous batch of fibre I've had. When I first felt this, I felt that maybe the preparation had made it feel a little bit less soft, but actually now I'm thinking maybe this has been less prepared than the batch that I had before. As I'm spinning this up, it feels slightly greasy, so I think maybe there's a bit more lanolin left in this than in the first batch that I had. But I'm going to spin up just this tiny little bit of fluff. I should get several meters from that. I'm spinning this quite fine. And then I shall ply that up with itself, soak it and see what that does to the fibre, and then I'll knit up a little sample with the few meters that I'll get from this little bit of fibre to see how I like it in comparison to the yarn that I started with for my hilltop shawl. And then at that point I'll be able to make a decision as to whether I carry on spinning this for my hilltop shawl or whether I find something else to substitute in to do that end section for that shawl. I'm hopeful that within the next couple of days I'll have done that so that I can make a decision on how to proceed with that shawl. I'd really like to get that shawl finished if I can. I've been really enjoying knitting it and it's been a really special make. This issue with the fibre, which I always knew might happen, has dampened my spirits a little bit for this project, but only ever so slightly. I am fairly sure that even if this fibre looks too different or I'm not happy with it, I'll find something else that I'll be able to finish that shawl off with. It just might turn into a slightly more longer term project if I have to do a few samples and find something else that I'm happy to add to what I already have on that shawl. I finished spinning up the little sample of Llanwenog that I've been working on. This yarn is definitely a lot crunchier than the yarn I spun from the previous iteration of this fibre that I had. So I'm going to give it a soak and see what happens. It's definitely still got that nice floofy texture. that the yarn from the original fibre had. And as I mentioned when I recorded the other day, I think there is a fair bit of lanolin left in this fibre. So I'm going to give it a soak and see what happens. I'll do that when I get home from work this evening, and then hopefully I'll be able to knit this up just into a little garter stitch sample once it's dried off overnight. And then I'll be able to make a decision as to whether this yarn is comparable enough to what I have. I've pre-drafted that mini bump of fibre that I showed you from the Loom Taster collection by Fondant Fibre. As you can see, there's some bumps that have got more of the orange, some that are a little bit darker. I've got some that have got sort of pinky paler colours, but I'm not really going to separate these out. I think I'm just going to spin them up and see what I get. And as I mentioned, I'm pretty sure that I'm going to end up with quite a muddy coloured yarn, but I'm kind of interested to see how this one turns out. I've finished spinning up that fibre. There's definitely some colour progression in there. You can see some nice orange streaks. But I think I'm going to be two-plying this now with itself. I've wound it up into a centre pole ball. And I think the overall yarn is probably going to look something more akin to what we've got on the outside here. The colours are very mixed, and I think that will probably be the kind of effect that we get overall, rather than this almost like a gradient effect that we can see in the ball at the moment. But yeah, we'll see. I didn't actually get round to knitting up that little sample of Lanwanog fibre. It is still quite crunchy after soaking, so I am going to knit that up into a little swatch today and see where I am with that one. With the other yarn that I was working on, this is how that yarn turned out, and it is quite muddy in terms of the colours versus how it looked in the original bat. But if I unfold this and spread it out over my hand a bit, you may be able to see, let me try and find a bit which shows it well. Here maybe. So you may be able to see there are still sort of definite colour sections. So I've got a piece over here that's more orangey, some over here that's definitely sort of more green. So I really enjoy how that one has spun up. It's quite nice and bouncy, this yarn too. I have no idea what fibre it is. It was just a sample in that a Loom Taster collection from Fondant Fibre. But this has actually kind of given me an idea for a future knitting project. So if you've been following for a while, you'll know that most of my little hand spun samples have gone into the little gnomes. But I think it would be quite nice to start making some other projects with my hand spun. Obviously I have my hilltop shawl, which I am working on from my Lanwanog fibre. But this yarn sort of made me think about a couple of other yarns that I've spun recently. I had this sort of bump of green, which was some Blueface Leicester fibre, which goes sort of quite nicely with the greens in there. I also have this bump of yellowy orange, which kind of sits on the other side of the sort of colours on this. So I'm starting to think about whether I might be able to knit one of the shift patterns that Andrea Mowry, who is Drea Renee Knits. She's recently bought out some patterns using spin cycle yarn, I think, for her samples. There's a cowl, a shawl, a jumper and a hat. Those yarns very much have the characteristic of hand spun. These are all fairly similar. My default sort of spin on my spindles tends to be between a sort of sport and DK weight I'm getting. So yeah, and I think these make quite a nice colour progression, so I'm wondering whether I can add some more. I haven't actually looked through the rest of my samples yet, but I'm thinking if I can find some more colours, then maybe I'll be able to make one of those projects, which will be quite a nice way to use up some of these little hand spun bumps. I also managed to spin and ply up a couple of other little samples this week. So this one was another bumper fibre from that Loom collection, so the same collection as this one. It's quite sort of rusty sort of reddy orangey colours. So that's the yarn that I got from that one. And then I also finished plying that lovely midnight sparkly blue colour that came from the Illume collection. This one's going to be really hard to show because it's so dark. But yeah, I've just 2-plied all of these. This one's got a ton of sparkle. It's so much fun. So yeah, I've done quite a lot of spinning this week. So I got these 3 completed bumps of fibre along with the Clanwanog that I was spinning up. That is everything for spinning this week. Finally on to crochet. Crochet is going to be quite a quick section this week. Mulling over what to do with this crochet jumper that I was making, and I think I have decided to frog it. I had a look on in the pattern. The sleeves were looking to be extremely big, and so I'd have to finagle the sleeves as well as do something with the neck, and I don't love this project enough. The yarn is lovely, but I just don't love the project enough to basically redesign half of the sweater. So this one is definitely going to the frog pond. As you can see, I haven't pulled it out yet. There is no rush to do so. I will repurpose this yarn for something else. This is the Stylecraft Boutique Elements yarn, which is an acrylic wool blend, and I really like this colourway. I just don't like this project. So I feel actually a big sense of relief having made that decision. Life is way too short to work on things that aren't making you happy, and while I have put quite a lot of effort into making the front and back, I just have a feeling that I wouldn't wear this when it was finished, because I'm just not happy with it, and as I say, I'm just not prepared to put the time into making the changes that I would need to make this fit. So yeah, that is one project off of my whips list. Just like that. So the only other thing that I did for crochet this week was a really cute little sort of palette cleanser of a project. Having my crochet group on a Wednesday, I'm always inspired to try and do a little bit of crochet along with them. I don't always, I do sometimes knit, but I had a fancy to make something, and I didn't want to start another blanket because I've got several blankets on the go. I obviously didn't want to start another garment at the moment because I am still feeling a bit peeved about my experience with that tunic that I've just shown you. But I do have a stack of old crochet magazines in the shop that people have donated at various points, and so I had a flick through those and I found this cute little amigurumi teddy. I'm afraid I don't have the magazine or the designer with me, but I picked out a couple of little skeins of my first Regia. These are like 25-gram balls of a wool nylon blend, and I decided to hook up the teddy. However, I chose the pink as the main colour, and as I was working him, he decided he wanted to be a pig rather than a teddy. So here he is. He's really small because the original pattern called for a DK weight yarn, and this one is a 4-ply, but I thought it would be just a sweet little thing to make. So yeah, I turned him into a little pig, and complete with, I gave him a little curly pigtail at the back there. So yeah, really sorry I can't furnish you with the details of the pattern on this one, but it's in an old copy of Simply Crochet, so probably a bit more difficult to get hold of the pattern anyway, but it's kind of simple amigurumi, so I'm sure there are many other bear patterns out there if you fancied having a go. Just hop on over to Ravelry, I'm sure there'll be tons. So yeah, it's my little piggy, and he was quite a fun little make, just as a little crochet palette cleanser, while I figure out if I want to start some new projects or where I'm going to go with my old projects. I think all of the other crochet projects, bar one, I've got on the hook at the moment are blankets. So yeah, I think I need to come up with a fun crochet project to work on. I think that's everything that I wanted to talk to you about this week. I feel like it's been fairly short, hopefully quite sweet, as the saying goes. But yeah, it's just been one of those weeks, but I really wanted to record a video, even if it is slightly shorter than my usual, just to get into the Monday habit. I am heading off to the movies this afternoon. I've got a few bits and pieces to get done around the house before I do that. but hopefully at some point I will get this video edited. Apologies for the changing of the light today. I can see as I'm chatting to you that the screen's going darker and lighter. Hopefully a little bit of that will get fixed in editing, but yeah, we can't control the weather and it's one of those sunny cloudy days today. I am looking forward to working on some things that I'm really excited about this week. I'm moving out of my week of working on my oldest whips into a work on whatever I want week, so it'll be no surprise to people who have been watching that I am straight back onto my Nordiska, and actually I worked on that yesterday, and yeah, I'm excited to show you that one next week. Need to find a project to knit on at the cinema. I don't think I've actually got any vanilla socks or any round and round knitting, so I may have to cast on some vanilla socks before I head out this afternoon. Yeah, let's get on that. I've got 3 pairs of socks on the needles at the moment, but all of them have got, well, I've got 4 pairs of socks on the needles at the moment if you include the test knit, but all of them have got some sort of pattern element to them. I've got 2 balls of yarn that I picked out of my mystery box in May and now June. Can you believe we're in June already? To cast on, so maybe I shall pick one of those and just make it into a vanilla sock and take it along to the movies with me this afternoon. Anyway, I'm just waffling now, aren't I? I hope that you get to have an enjoyable week and are able to do some of the things that you love. And until I see you next time, great big woolly hugs to you all. Bye for now.